This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 38.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 38, and today's special guest is Jonathan Milligan. Jonathan is a pro blogger, an entrepreneur, an author, and he's got an amazing story to share with you. So enjoy today's episode. Hi, Jonathan, and welcome to the Extra Paycheck Podcast.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Jonathan, can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself and what is that you do as a business?
Sure. So I basically work from home full time, and I manage two blogs. And one was the first blog I started with, was actually a career coaching blog. And then a few years later, after figuring out how to earn extra income and doing that full time, I moved to actually my second blog, which is about blogging and helping people who are looking to work from home and want to do so online. So that is what I do.
Awesome. And that's really interesting that you mentioned the second part, I guess. You have a blog which talks about blogging and making a living out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It got to the, after I started figuring things out on my own, and I know you started a few years ago like I did. And, I don't know if you remember this, Alex, but like when I first started, there was not a whole lot of information or resources to help those who were getting started online. I remember buying a course, and literally the video told me that while you're waiting for WordPress to install, go get a cup of coffee because it's going to take 20 or 30 minutes to upload WordPress via FTP. And today we get to push a button and instantly get WordPress. And so I was just trying to figure things out as I went along, and I started getting more and more people asking me, well, how did you leave your day job to do this full-time online, and what were the steps you took? So I decided to start sharing those more and more to try to help more people.
Yeah, great story, and it makes it interesting, well, to me personally, because that's how I started my very first email list, my very first free course, because I kept having, first of all, friends and people that I would meet, keep asking me, because I was doing mostly affiliate marketing, and they kept asking me, what is affiliate marketing? How do you do that? How do you what's the process? And I just got so tired of repeating the same information, because it would take, a few hours just to go over the basics.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you know what? I'll just create this free resource and let people go through it themselves, because, there obviously is a demand for it, and you can't just keep repeating. And it's kind of, you get to it by using that knowledge that you've acquired over the years, let's say, or months or years.
Well, and you bring up a great point that there's gold in the questions people are asking us. And while at times we feel like we get asked the same questions over and over again, you've got two choices. One, you could be kind of frustrated by that. Or number two, you could see the opportunity in it that, man, this is an opportunity to help people who need help in this specific area. It's funny because I actually started blogging because I was getting the same repeated questions related to careers. And I was an executive recruiter. I was, helping people land jobs, but I was earning my commission from the company, not from the candidates I was trying to help find jobs. Yet I was spending a lot of times answering the same questions over and over again about resumes, interviewing, salary negotiation. And I thought, I wonder if there's a way that I can begin documenting this stuff. I didn't want to write a book. And that's when I kind of fell into blogging. And I said, here's an opportunity for me to share my experience, and then I can refer people to the information, and I don't have to spend as much one-on-one time with them. Little did I know that idea would turn into a business. And that's the neat thing about answering those questions that you hear people asking, is there can be real gold and real opportunity there.
Yeah, totally. And Jonathan, for how long have you been doing this online business like full time?
So I transitioned full time in 2000, probably mid 2011. Started blogging early 2009.
Was that your first blog, or was it your second blog, actually?
So my first blog I started in 2009, and the second blog I started somewhere in the spring of 2011, just about the time that I was getting ready to go full time. And I thought, launching the second blog will kind of help fill in any nervousness I feel about launching into this full time.
Yeah, I understand that. So the first blog that you started, and I guess it started picking up while you were still working at your your job back then.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was kind of a side hustle, a side project for a couple years, 2.5, 3 years. And oftentimes it was me waking up at 5 a.m. To spend an hour or two on my blog, and then going to my day job all day. And of course, I had a family, and so I didn't want that to get in the way. And so just learning to find those extra times that are opportunities for us to do something on the side. And I would often repeat to myself, work for yourself first. And that's what helped motivated me to get up at 5 a.m. Because I knew between 5 to 7 a.m., if I did that Monday through Friday, that was 10 hours that I could spend uninterrupted and push forward what I felt like had real potential.
Yeah, I understand that. And this is something that I always try to make a point of, and I'm always trying to explain this to people properly, because there's a question that I get very, very often by email most of the time from people asking me, can I make, I'm total newbie, can I make this amount of money by this date? Or how long is it going to take me to with my blog so I could quit my job? And can I do it by next month?
Yeah. I get those too. And the hard truth is I reply back and tell them, you need to get a job. If that is your goal. Because what they do is the kind of emails I get is they say, I want to know if this online business, this blogging thing is for real. So can I make X amount of dollars within the next month or two? And I tell them, things are always evolving. I'm seeing people be more successful at it faster than ever before. But I believe that the better message, at least the message that I like to teach, is the brick by brick philosophy. This is like anything else that you do. You can begin to earn money. And the awesome thing, Alex, and you know this about having an online business, is it's open 24/7. So when you do work on it on the side, like when I worked on it early in the morning, I would go work all day on my day job, come home that night and see that I had earned money while I was doing something else. That's the beautiful thing about an online business per se, is you're allowed to be in two places at once.
Yeah. And I totally love that. And it's funny because it does sound like a scam at some point when you let's say, without the actual context, you tell your friends, I made, let's say, $200 last night while I was sleeping. My website, and people be like, yeah, what are you talking about? That sounds like a scam, but that's the whole point of an online business. And I mean, I don't want the listeners to think that it's easy or it happens all the time or it happens to every website and every blog. But let's say you are selling a product that's worth $200 and you just need one sale somewhere from Australia, which it's like daytime there and it's still nighttime here in US or Canada. So it does happen. You do make money overnight sometimes. And like you said, that's the beautiful thing of an online business. It's a 24/7. It's open on Christmas. It's open all the time. There is no stopping, which is a really awesome thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jonathan, I guess the question would be, how are you generating income from your blogs? That's a question also that I get asked a lot. How exactly do you make money from those websites? So how do you do that?
Yeah, I get that question too, and it's funny because they're like, "Wait a minute, how do you make money with a blog? Do you just write articles and you earn money?" And so,
doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
right?
It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I tell people there's a lot of ways that you can earn money. When I first started, I only knew of 3 ways, and 2 of those required my time. In other words, sell my coaching, sell a service. It was trading time for dollars, but yet it was a revenue stream. It was an opportunity to earn money doing something else. But I did know, at least at the time when I first started, that there was Google AdSense, and there were opportunities to earn with people clicking on ads on the website. And so that was my very kind of humble beginnings. But within 2 years, I had literally 12 different income buckets that I had discovered and started to experiment with that really began to help me. Now, there's a lot that we can talk about. One of my favorites is actually creating your own online courses, your own products, your own services. Publishing books has never been easier, especially with Kindle. I know some people who that's all they do is Kindle publishing. There's opportunity for your own print books, audio books. You can earn income with a membership site. I started one about 2.5 years ago, and it's been terrific. Affiliate marketing is a great source of income because you can share with people the tools that you're using or the courses that have been helpful to you and earn a commission on those things. So there's lots of different ways. Those are some of the primary ways.
Mm-hmm. I guess the most common and the most known ways to do that. Yeah. And to be honest with you, I haven't really earned anything with AdSense. I mean, I think I did earn a few $100s back in the day, but then this is when I was kind of trying to decide between the AdSense and affiliate marketing or doing both of them. And then, to me personally, AdSense was, not AdSense, I mean, the affiliate marketing was a lot more profitable than AdSense. So, and I was trying to build sites and blogs of more of a quality where people actually read and pay attention to the stuff a lot. And I thought that it would be easier to kind of have them buy stuff through my links other than just click on some ads which will earn me pennies. Well, I think you know the mentality that goes into that, and people decide using one or another, both of them, for very different reasons.
Right, and you have to decide ultimately what your strategy is going to be. When I first started, I didn't know what I was kind of getting into, and so I was a little bit more aggressive with AdSense because one of the things you have to have with AdSense is you've got to have the traffic, right? You've got to have the volume to be able to
the volume.
Yeah,
exactly.
To be able to turn that over. But then another really good question you have to ask yourself is, if I have that kind of volume, is there a better way to monetize it? And, for some people that works for them because their strategy they've chosen is to be a publisher. They're like a Huffington Post, an entrepreneur.com. They're cranking out content. They don't really have a strategy beyond that or they're not in the game to be able to create their own products, build an email list, that sort of a plan. For me, with Blogging Your Passion, I started with AdSense ads. And after I created my first product about 6 months in, I said, I want the focus of my site to be on optimizing people to get on an email list and to hear about my products and services, and also affiliate marketing with the tools that I use every day that I want to introduce them to. And so that I did not want to deter my traffic away for a few pennies a click.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And see, this is exactly what I think would make a good explanation for people. Why do one or another? As you mentioned, websites like entrepreneur.com, they don't create courses. They don't want to concentrate on selling affiliate products or whatever it is. As you said, their main goal is to have people come to their site and read the content. So that's what they do. They produce a lot of content, and the easiest way, I guess, to monetize content, if you have them and your readers, is putting ads or get paid for, by advertisers for people that just see your ad.
Exactly.
Whatever it is. Yeah, and what you've decided to do 6 months, you said, after starting, you decided to do your own product and sell it. And it makes a lot of sense that you try to take everything that's too much away from your blog, everything that could grab your potential customer and take them away somewhere else. It's that's the whole point. You have to remove all those ads and everything else that could just distract them from you.
Absolutely. And that's why choosing your model is so important. What is your ultimate goal? And for me, it was kind of more the expert model. I wanted to be the teacher. And so with that, I wanted to point people to the services I was using that I recommend through my teaching and the courses that I was creating through my teaching.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And so you created your first product on your blog, on your second blog, and how did it do? Did it do well sales-wise with it, or?
Yeah, so my very first actual, I would call it, beyond trading time for dollars, the very first course I created was in 2010, and it was a job search course. So it was how to uncover hidden jobs. And it was an 18-week course where they got one video, one lesson a week for 18 weeks to kind of walk them through from your resume to negotiating your salary. So what I did, Alex, is I thought, I don't want to create all 18 weeks of content only to discover nobody really wants this. Mm-hmm. Especially when I had at that time less than 500 people on an email list and probably less than 1,000 people visiting my blog. So it was really kind of early on, but I did want to test it out. So what I did is I actually only created the first 2 lessons, so the first 2 weeks of content, and then I put it out there and I promoted it to my list. I promoted on the blog, and I had 15 people buy it in that first weekend. Now it was, I think it was $97 product, so it was about $1,400. And for me, it was like, I was so ecstatic. It was my first, this thing could be something. It was that humble belief that, I know it's not a 6-figure launch here, but $1,400 is pretty exciting. The downside that I didn't really think about is I had to now create 16 more weeks of content, and that's 4.5 months for $1,400. Now, that is not necessarily ideally what you want. So there's, but at the same time, I just wrote a blog post about this actually, that the process to success, I believe, is you launch and then you learn. And you can't figure things out without doing something. You have to launch something first. It gets you a result, positive or negative, and you learn from that. You learn how to charge more. You learn how to do things different. You learn to shave off that many weeks and only do 8 weeks. I mean, that's the process of learning. Now, the awesome thing was that once I created the entire course, I went on for a couple years, and even today, I still sell pieces of it. And I've been able to get out of the time for money trap by actually selling something that I created over and over and over and over and over again. And that was what I was talking about earlier, coming home from work and seeing that I had a $97 PayPal sell on a course that I created a couple months earlier. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that totally makes sense, and that's really awesome. I love hearing stuff like that. This is why, like, let's say when I go into affiliate marketing, right? I try to promote products or services that are on a recurring basis, that basically will pay me a commission every month or every year, whatever it is, as long as the person renews their membership or their whatever it is, they have to pay monthly or yearly. And it's really awesome for a lot of online stuff because people do renew. Well, many people stay clients for years and years to come. Because let's say if you promote a hosting plan, and if a person is serious and they build a website and they're serious about it, chances are they'll stick with that hosting plan for 5 years, 10 years maybe, and you'll get commissions for all this time. So it's that one sale that you made of, I don't know, $50 or $100 could potentially make you thousands. And it's the same thing for your courses. You just said you had to work really hard to create that course. And if you think about it, like, okay, I have to work all of that time for $1,400. Not sure if it's worth it, but the fact that you kept on selling that product, so you put in a lot of effort once, and then you just keep selling it and selling it and selling it, and it accumulates. When you count how much you've actually made over the years, it makes total sense to that you put in that effort back in the day.
Yeah, and that's what especially people that are just getting started or they've been in it for just a little bit. So they really struggle with that, and I think they struggle because they're wondering whether or not anybody's going to buy what they have to sell anyways. And one of the ways around that is just to launch a beta. I mean, that's what I did. If I did 2 weeks of worth of lessons and I put it out there to my list and not one person bought it, then I would start retooling and think, okay, what can I do different? Instead of spending 4.5 months on the front end only to come out of the cave and realize that nobody wanted what I was putting together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another thing, and I've seen that done kind of what you did. I see it done right now with apps. Mm-hmm. Often when it's an app, well, I can't give you an exact example of an app, but sometimes people want to launch a new app, and before spending money to building it, what they would do, they would just create a website with a pre-registration link or form. Mm-hmm. And judging by how many people register, how many people are already super interested and curious about using that app, this is when they decide if they actually, keep going with it and if they create the actual thing.
Yeah, it's a great example.
Yeah. So what you did was a really, really great thing to do. And I'm sure that still works now. It's the same. Those things haven't changed, the same thing. Just, I guess, for you right now would be a bit different because you already have an audience who are interested in what you do. And I guess... Mm-hmm. Or would you still do the same thing right now?
Yeah, what I would do and what I have done is I always survey my audience before I create something new. And so a couple years ago, I published a Kindle book, and I'd written a couple blog posts about it, and it seemed like my audience was really intrigued by it. So I said, I'm going to send a quick survey, simple 3-question survey. Question number 1 is, how many of you have thought of actually publishing a Kindle book? And when 84% of those responded yes, and gave me the biggest reason why they hadn't yet, their biggest challenge, I knew then that I needed to create a course for this because there was enough demand for it. And so that's when I went on to create a course called Kindle Your Passion. And mm-hmm. And that's what I do before I create any product is I get feedback from to see if there's some interest that's there.
Yeah, that is really awesome. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, you could basically keep asking your audience what they want, what they struggle with, and then just keep creating courses for those specific people who have that specific problem.
Yeah,
and
in fact, here's one tip that I have started doing is I have a welcome email series. Anytime anybody new gets on my email list, the very mm-hmm. first email they get is I ask them to reply and say, what's one thing you want to know about online business more than anything? And I get replies every single day. Now, that has added a lot of email messages to my inbox, but here's what I do. I take their the question that they ask, and I put it in an Evernote file. And I've got answers upon answers upon answers. I know the one thing that they want, that the one thing they're struggling with the most, the one thing that they want, and I'm constantly getting feedback.
Mm-hmm. That is really awesome and really, really smart, man. Okay, so I wanted to ask another question about about your business again. When you decided to quit your job, I guess, and when you started working at it full time, weren't you scared that it could stop suddenly and then you'll be stuck without a job or a business?
Yes, that definitely was in the back of my mind, and I kept thinking, and that's why I needed honestly, that's why I needed a second kind of brand mentally, because I felt like if I can have 2 different brands, it'll kind of mitigate the risk a little bit, because I've got this career coaching thing over here that's working. And then if I'm teaching online business over here, then, this will kind of help. But in the back of my mind, yes, I definitely kept my ear to the ground to what are potential bridge jobs, jobs that I could get that were 10 hours a week or even 20 hours a week, to make sure that, the mortgage stays up to date, that I can feed my kids. So those kind of things definitely cross your mind. But also looking back, I can see that the times that I became the most courageous, it pulled the most out of me. It pushed me. Now, that's not to say that somebody doesn't need to decide, I'm just going to drop my job today and do this full time, even though I've not made $1 online. I think you got to be a little bit smarter and have a little bit better of a strategy. But there is something that calls you up when you are backed up against the wall.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, it is true. And this is something that I always try to tell people as well, that it's not it's not as easy as you just jump in and do it. We're all afraid. We're that fear of failure. That's something that I kept hearing, and I thought, what's that? That's kind of stupid, but it does exist, and it's really, really real, and it does keep you away from achieving things because by nature we're scared of rejection. We're scared to fail, and that's one of the things that's always on my mind. Let's say I knew that my business is growing and I'm doing better and better, but I still have this thought of what if one day internet would just disappear? I don't know, something. So you always have that fear that something's gonna go wrong, but you just, I guess, have to push through it and keep on working.
Well, and here's what you just brought something to mind. I did have a mentor who was at the time doing way better than I was, and I remember him telling me, Jonathan, there's only two things in online business world. There's only two things you can take with you to the grave: your email list and your reputation. And that, to me, it was just what I needed to hear, because if my website blew up, if for some reason I got told I can no longer use this domain name, if just everything unraveled, as long as I had a way to communicate with the people who wanted to hear from me, and that I didn't do anything to compromise my reputation, that I was going to be okay, that things were going to get better. And here's the truth. Every year since I've been in blogging, it's gotten better. Not only more people to the blog, but the income has grown year after year. And so while we have those fears and reservations, there's another side to it, and that is that this thing can continue to grow, and you need to raise your belief in not just surviving, but actually thriving, and that is a possibility for you, and that you can do it.
Really, really great stuff, man. And I totally agree with you about those two only things that you could take to the grave with you. And I think this is another really important piece of information that you just give out right now. People start building your emailing list from day one, because this is something that you'll be able to take with you. Like you said, if you lose your rankings, you get banned by your advertiser, and you can't run your PPC anymore. You have to give up your domain name. Regardless, chances are you still have access to that email list, and if you've built it properly, and if you started building it from the very beginning, those people love hearing from you, and you'll still stay in touch with them and have that audience and that following of people who are interested in you.
You got it. That's exactly what has kept me sane in a world where things change all the time.
Yeah, but Jonathan, I'll let you in on a little secret here. In 2010, I believe, I went on a super long vacation to Europe for a few months, and I kind of not really abandoned my business. I just stopped taking care of it. I thought, it'll survive, and when I come back from my vacation, I'll take care of it. And what happened? This is actually one of my recent episodes was about that I released. What happened is that my credit card on file expired for most of my everything, for my domain names, for my hosting, including my Aweber subscription, which caused me a loss of an email list of about 8,000 people. And there was no way of getting them back. I tried, and that was, I think, if I would say, compare any kind of failure or loss for me personally, that was like the biggest loss ever, because that's 8,000 people that I've been collecting and communicating with, and I lost that list. It was painful. It was really painful, but oh well, guess what? I got up and I started from scratch. I'm building a new emailing list, and this time I'll be a lot more careful with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And although I hate that you had to go through that you raised an important point, and that is that your mindset didn't stop you, because it's like you've been successful once, you can do it again. And for people that are just getting started, if they can adopt that mindset, if somebody became successful in online business and had everything taken away from them, they can get to success again, because their mindset is not slowing them down. They're not doubting themselves. They're not doubting the process. And if you're new or you're just kind of getting going, your mindset slows you down and stops you more than you think, because you doubt yourself, you doubt what you're doing. And, for good reason. I get it, because you haven't tasted or seen real success yet. But if you can just adopt the mindset of somebody that's been successful and decide to measure your activity instead of your results in the immediate, you can really begin to make some progress.
100%. And another thing that I would suggest people to try to believe, try to understand, that everyone is kind of equal. When we begin, when we start, let's say, our online business or any kind of online adventure, we start from the same point. Mm-hmm. We all start, like you said, back in the day when the course would tell you to start installing WordPress and go have a cup of tea because it takes a long time to install it. This is something that you and I had to learn from the very scratch. What is a WordPress? How do you install it? What is a URL? What is a domain name? So, I like to think and tell people that, look, I'm not a genius, or any of these people that I interview, they're not geniuses. They're just people that believed in themselves, and they did everything it takes. They took a lot of action to get where they are, and you can too. There is nothing that, they didn't have some secret access to some shortcut or some Google Insights or whatever you want to call it, a lot of those scammy and sketchy courses that they try to sell you. Oh, we found this Google loophole which could make you $1 million in a night, That doesn't exist, and none of us have ever found it. We worked hard, and we found our way, and we, used YouTube and Google to find the answers to our questions, and we paid people to help us out, and we bought courses. But so can everyone else who's just starting. It's exactly the same path for everyone, and there's no secret to it. There's no something incredibly hidden and secretive. It's accessible to anyone who actually wants to succeed and actually who's ready to work.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing, and that should be an encouragement for people to know that there's not a magic button or secret traffic loophole. And the thing that I teach, especially for those that are trying to get started blogging, I said every successful blogger you admire once wrote in complete obscurity, and they just published again, and they published again, and they didn't get any comments. They didn't have any social media following. They just kept taking action. And that's where momentum comes from. Momentum comes from consistency. And that's just the way that it happens. And so anybody that you admire, if you look at these people who get hundreds of comments on their blog posts, they didn't start there. They probably wrote 10 or 12 blog posts and never got one comment, one feedback, but they kept going anyways.
Yeah, it's a really great example. And it's a great example. And you could even try to find some of the oldest posts, let's say, from your favorite bloggers, from the successful ones, right? You could dig into their history and try to find some of their first blog posts, and it will be really obvious what Jonathan just mentioned, that there is no interaction, there's no comments. The blog posts themselves are often incomplete and kind of really basic and really short, and and then as you go through their material, you see the progress. You see how being consistent changes everything, and the person gets better at writing content, and the content gets more interesting and longer and more detailed and more helpful. And then you start seeing a comment, 2, and then 20, and then 50. But it takes years sometimes to get to that point.
Yep, you're exactly right. And I echo that with my own blogging. Every once in a while come across one of my old blog posts, and I just shake my head going, this is terrible. I probably should delete it.
Yeah, it's the same for me. When I read some of my first blog posts, I think I should delete it as well, but I never do, because I think it's kind of a good point also to remind yourself and sometimes to share with others.
Yeah.
You're like, really? You think you're a bad writer? Okay, here is my first article. Go read it.
Exactly. And for me, podcasting's the same. Don't go back and listen to my first podcast episode. Hopefully, I've grown. Hopefully, I'm better on my most recent podcast than I was on my first episode. And if I'm not better, something's wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you. The more you do it, the more practice you get in. Usually, the better you get, and you start realizing things that you should be doing more, should be doing less, or shouldn't be doing at all. There you go. It's all a part of it.
Yep.
And Jonathan, I wanted to ask you maybe to share an advice for someone who hasn't actually started, who's just thinking of starting a blog. What should they blog about, or how should they create their blog in such a way that it will help them stay motivated and keep working on content and keep trying to promote that blog and yeah, there you go.
Sure. Well, I believe firmly in following things that you're passionate about. I know there's always this constant debate online about don't follow your passion, follow something that makes money or do something that earns income. But I just believe we fundamentally live in a different world today with online businesses. I see people earning good money on things that I didn't think could be monetized, and they're doing it. And so I believe when you're first getting started with blogging, you have to be able to share out of the wealth of experience, the things that you're passionate about. What is it that you love to learn about? Jonathan Mead calls it your no-end path. What's your no-end path? The thing that you love to learn about, you love to get more books about, you love to watch YouTube videos about, you love to listen to podcasts about it. What are those things that you constantly soak up? And I heard something the other day that if you've read 4 books on a topic, you know more than 94% of the population. And so congratulations, you're now an expert, and you are an expert to somebody. And you can now begin to pass that knowledge that you've acquired on. So I think that's the first thing. The other thing real quick I would say, Alex, is I teach what's called the 4 Keystone Habits. And these 4 Keystone Habits are what I believe is what I've seen other successful bloggers do. And for me, even, it represents 90 to 95% of my work week. So you can look at these 4 habits, and 90 to 95% of my work week, I'm in one of these 4 habits. The first one is the create habit. That is creating text, audio, or video to get your message out to the masses. This is the free consumable stuff. This podcast is a good example. A blog post is a good example. YouTube videos are good examples. So on a regular basis, share free content so that you can attract more people to your message. The second habit is the capture habit. That is the building of the email list, like we've already talked about. The third habit is the compile habit, and that is where you package your knowledge and perspective into products and services. Now, you could put affiliate marketing in that, but I think it's having something for sale and creating something that someone can actually buy. Because until you have something for sale on your blog, you're not open for business. I hear people say, well, I haven't made a first dollar online. Well, what have you done? Well, I only get, 1,200 people to my blog in a month, and I only have 3 people on an email list. Well, have you tried to sell anything? No. And that's part of the process. And then the fourth one is the connect habit. That's where you are building community with other passionate influencers. Who are the other people that are doing the thing that you're doing that you can begin to connect with, you can learn from, they can learn from you. And so that's where I spend my week. I'm either create, capture, compile, and connect. And when you figure those out and do those on a regular basis, you get yourself moving and get that momentum in your business to actually achieve something.
Really great advice, Jonathan. Thank you for sharing that. And can you personally choose which one you spend the most time on?
Yeah, so for me personally,
yeah.
So my mornings I spend in the create and the compile. So I have this saying that I tell myself over and over again, do creative work first. And so whether that's writing blog posts, recording podcast, or it's creating a video for a course in that compile habit, the create and the compile I leave for the mornings because I block out my mornings. I'm at my best in the mornings. And then the afternoons, I'm using it to connect with other people. We're connecting in the afternoon, so this works great. I reach out and network. I do the business side, which is more of the administrative side or work in the email list a little bit. So out of all those, the ones that are the most important to get my day started right is to start off either creating free content or compiling something that I'm going to sell. And I do those in the mornings.
Yeah, as you said, you figured that this is when it works best for you.
Right. And it might be different for everybody else. But for me, I'm at my best in the mornings. And that's when I need to be creating content.
Yeah, I understand you. And, to be honest with you, I thought complete opposite. I was thinking that I'm the most creative in the evening and at night. But why this happened, I figured that out not that long ago. What happened is that I would stay up late until, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., regardless. That not that important. Mm-hmm. Then I would sleep in late until, let's say, 11 in the morning. Mm-hmm. Then, you get up, have your coffee, and since it's daytime, somebody calls you or somebody talks to you, have a chat, blah, blah, blah. You sit to check your emails. There's already a whole bunch of emails piled up. By the time you actually start working, you already lost like 4 or 5 hours since you woke up. Yeah. And then because it's day and evening, you get distracted all the time by people because everyone's awake and everyone's off of their work and everybody wants to bother you. And you just get interrupted. So even though I'm not a morning person, usually, whenever, and I try to do that most of the time now, if I get up and start working, let's say at 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning, by noon, I've got so much more work done, creative especially work, like you said, not creative, but creation. Yeah. When I, posting something or cleaning out exactly my email list by changing my emails and adding stuff, removing content, creating images or videos, wherever it is, I'll just get so much more of it done in the morning, and not because I'm a morning person or consider myself as such, but because mornings are so much, I guess, calmer and I don't know, but it's exactly what you said.
Yeah, and everybody's different. Their schedules are different, but for me, especially my kids are in school. My kids are at that age now where even during the summers, they're sleeping in. And so I'm much more distracted in the afternoons by cutting off work and going and doing something with them or doing something with the family. And so mornings just work better. My kids are getting the age where they're staying up later. And so you have to look at the life stage that you're into. Where are you the most alive? And we may have more than one in our day. For me, I do come back to life probably around 8 or 9 o'clock, and I probably could go till midnight or 1 or 2 a.m. But now in the life stage I'm in, it's not only when I am working the best, but also what is the most possible uninterrupted time that I have. And for me now, it's in the mornings.
Awesome stuff. And as I told you, I try to do mornings too, but sometimes it happens that at 9 o'clock, at like 9 p.m., I get super excited about something and I get super creative and in the mood. And I could spend the next 4 hours writing a blog post.
Yeah.
It happens sometimes. And it's great that we have the possibility of doing so because we don't need to be let's say at a job
Right.
from nine to five. So whenever we get that boost of creativity, we could just do it usually.
Absolutely. And you bring up a great point and this is something I had to really capture and I had to get is one day I was sitting there and I'm like, why am I forcing myself to work till 5 o'clock? Whoever said that I have to work till 5 o'clock? I'm my own boss. And so I decided at 3 o'clock one day that I'm just going to stop working and my work is still going to be there, but tomorrow, right? But I think it's important that you made a good point that when inspiration does strike and you have opportunity to dive into it, why not? You can. You don't have to tell yourself that you have to work 9 to 5 and you can only have lunch between 12 and 1. It's your life and it's your business. Work it how you want.
Yeah, totally. And Jonathan, I'll ask you maybe to share one last thing is, did you have I'm sure you did because everyone had that very, very hard moment sometimes through your blogging, your blogging career, your blogging venture. What was that one moment when you felt like maybe it's really not worth it and maybe you should just quit and go back to a job?
Oh, I had a bunch. I probably wanted to quit a few times. At least I had those moments of quitting. Or thinking about quitting. But I got over those because I love teaching and I love sharing and I can't think of anything else I'd rather do. And so I get back into it. But, I would say specifically if I had to choose, specifically it was around a certain course that I was launching. That in my mind, I was convinced that this was going to be the breakthrough. This thing was going to, in my mind, it was going to earn me $20,000 to $30,000 in a matter of the 1 or 2 weeks. And I felt like, I was always looking, Alex, for my inflection point. Where's the thing when the dam is going to break loose and, all the money is going to come flooding into your account. And then when I ended up earning, I think it was $3,500, which sounds wrong to say I was disappointed because there's many people who would, and I never want to assume that was wrong. But in that moment, I had my expectations somewhere else. And then you just start getting that place where you're like, why can't this happen for me? It seems like it's happening for everybody else, or everyone else seems to have this amazing. And what happens, Alex, is we judge our backstage by someone else's front stage. And the backstage for us is things are messy, they're incomplete, they're not perfect. And then we look at the other people and all we see is their front stage presence, how everything's polished and it looks good.
Yeah.
But what we forget is how messy and how frustrating it can be for parts of their business in their backstage. And it was a good lesson for me because after I kind of wallowed in that for a little bit, I said, you know what? The thing is, I am continuing to learn and I'm continuing to grow. And there isn't any certain rule that says I have to have a breakthrough to be successful at this. My experience has been brick by brick, little by little, things have gotten better. And every year that I've been in this, I've earned more income and I've been able to reach more people. But I've never had that inflection point where everything just poured into it. But you don't have to have that experience in order to be successful at this. So at the end of the day, the lesson for me was to just keep on teaching, serving, and giving to other people. And don't compare yourselves with other people. That's where your joy is robbed, is when you start comparing yourself with other people.
Really, really great share, Jonathan. That a really great story. And Yeah, I totally agree with you that it's super important, and that success, or whatever you call success, is going to be different for everyone, and it's going to happen differently. So, as you just said, Jonathan, don't measure yourself to others and decide if you're a success or a failure. You're a success in your own way, and that's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
All right, Jonathan. So before you go, could you share some ways that people could find out more about you, about your work, and connect with you and with what you do?
Sure. Well, I've got two blogs. One is jonathanmilligan.com. That one started as a career coach blog. Today, it's a lot more of a productivity blog, and I've kind of broadened the topic there. And then I also have bloggingyourpassion.com, which I share principles and tips that I've learned about building an online business. And then if you want to have a book to read, I've actually encapsulated much of my journey from blogging your passion into a book that's on Amazon, and it's called 15 Success Traits of Pro Bloggers. And it's pretty much a business book for online for people who are looking for a book to read. Maybe you're not a blog reader, but maybe you like to read books, then there's an opportunity there.
Great stuff. Thanks for sharing. And you write really, really awesome articles. I've been reading them for quite a while now, and I really appreciate every time I read a piece of your advice or content.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And this was an awesome conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you so much for being on. I really learned quite a bit of stuff, and I'm sure a lot of listeners enjoyed this conversation. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Alex.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. As usual, I will be putting up a show notes page at extrapodcast.com/38. This is where you'll be able to find all the links, resources, and other things that we talked about in today's episode with Jonathan. You can also subscribe to the show by going to extrapodcast.com/iTunes. This is where you could also leave a review and a rating for the show, which will help tremendously. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next Monday.